This week we are so lucky to have with us Sylvia from South Africa. Hi, Sylvia.
Hello. Oh, thanks for having me.
No, this is
Um,
great. This is great. It's been a while since I talked to Sylvia because she's been to Santiago. I have been to Santiago like almost every year for a long time, right? Or no?
this year would have been the 13th walk to Santiago.
13th walk. Wow.
So it was an unlucky number for me. It's not going to happen.
Yes. No, you're not going to come.
But I think we first met at the travel center in 2009.
Yes, I think
You
so.
remember that?
But before that, you became part of the forum in 2004 when I started.
That's right. It was first called Santiago Today,
Exactly.
and it was more about Santiago
I
than the
know.
Camino.
Yes, that was a.
And I think, if I remember correctly, I joined in about November.
Yeah.
And I was already a Camino junkie then, Eva.
Yeah.
I searched there was no Google yet, no proper Google for another 4 years, but
Yeah.
I was a member. Do you remember Piers Nicholson?
Yes.
He had Santiago Compostela Net. He'd started it in 2002.
Was that the photo pages?
He made sundials. He was a wonderful man, and he had this wonderful website, but he then turned it into a sort of forum blog.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit primitive in that, like a blog, your latest question was always at the top, and if you wanted to find old ones, you had to scroll all the way down to the bottom.
Yeah.
And just like your forum or any forum, every week there were questions. How do I get to Saint Jean-Pied-de-Port?
Yeah.
How much is it going to cost? When is the best time to go?
Yeah.
What will the weather be like? What clothing should I take? That was, and
Yeah.
I decided after a couple of years I would copy and paste all of the questions on that forum, and I had 162 pages of questions.
Wow.
And when I finished sifting through the frequently asked questions, the same questions that were asked, I had 62 pages of questions.
Yes.
And I remember sending them to Piers, and I said, wouldn't you like a frequently asked page for your, question and answer page for your website? And he said, yes, but I'm not going to maintain it, so I'm going to call it Sylvia's Top Tips. So, on this website, it was Sylvia's Top Tips.
Oh, that's nice.
Then you started, not even 2 years later,
Yeah.
you started yours.
Yeah.
And there was Santiago Biz.
Santiago
At the
Biz
time.
Santiago Biz was the email list.
It was on Yahoo.
Exactly.
It was a Yahoo forum,
Yeah.
very strictly run by Peter and Michael from the Netherlands.
Holland, I
Very,
remember.
very strictly, yes. I remember asking a question once about fiestas, and I said, I really don't like watching animals being injured like the San Fermin or those sort of things.
Yeah.
And he emailed me and said, we can't put that question on the forum because it will upset other people. So, it was a very strictly run
Yes.
forum.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
if you remember back in 2004, how do you see any difference in pilgrims then and pilgrims now?
Sometimes, but not really. I'm of the opinion that pilgrims haven't changed in 1,000 years, really. We're just human beings, Eva. And I do find that what has changed is a little bit more intolerance to those who don't do it the way others think it should be done. I've done quite a lot of research on the pilgrimage for the last 2 centuries. And nobody cared how you got there, Eva, to Santiago. And you can find lots of academic papers about that. One of them is a Professor Sasha Pack, who wrote a wonderful article on the revival of the Camino, going back to the late 1800s when the relics were rediscovered. And he said a pilgrim was a man cycling from France to come to Santiago in 1950, or a platoon of green coats walking to Santiago in 1948, or a pilgrim arriving on a train in 1896. Nobody cared how they got there. But there seems to be a little bit now of intolerance. But I think that will also go. As more people do it the way they want to do it, which is in their comfort zone, I think more people will get a bit more tolerant about that.
Yeah. I find also that running it now is more difficult because there's so many more people on there, and there's a lot of more questions. There's a lot more volume you have to look through, and there's always like you can say this, but I find it.
The nice thing about your forum is that you have different forums for the different routes, so they're not all jumbled up. So that's nice. Just one thing I do notice often on the forum and on the Facebook groups is a lot of long distance pilgrims, having done it for the first time, complain about the numbers in Syria, and they almost have a derogatory way of describing those pilgrims. But as you know, I've led groups of not so able-bodied pilgrims from Syria. The first one in 2013, and I met you that year. We took 17 days to walk from Syria to Santiago. And there were lots of sideways glances about us getting in a taxi and arriving the next morning in a taxi at a place. But I had Uncle Bob who was turning 90, and we had a woman who'd had a stroke, Renette, whose husband came from Galicia. We had a group of people who could never have done 20 kilometers a day. So we walked every inch of that Camino, but we only walked 5 kilometers. So,
That's amazing.
In 2004, when I walked from Paris to Spain, we didn't see more than 3 pilgrims, probably 3, the whole 800 kilometers from Paris down to about Osterbat. And then when we got to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, it was like 4th of July in America, Syttende May in Norway. It was a holy year. The whole of Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port was full, wall to wall down the Rue de la Citadelle. Pilgrims with beautiful new clean clothes on, shiny new shoes, nervous. They'd taken all the beds, because there weren't that many beds in 2004. They'd taken all the beds. There was nowhere for us to stay unless we stayed in a very expensive hotel. We had to queue up to get lunch, and a guy who'd come from France, he'd come from Le Puy, he said, "It annoys me when these people come here and only do half of the Camino Francais." He said they think the Camino starts in Saint-Jean. The French part ends in Saint-Jean. He said they're only doing half of the Camino.
That's right. So that was your Syria, kind of.
So it's a similar comparison there.
That's funny. And I remember you were walking. It was 2003 or 2004, and I was following you along on Facebook, and you were walking, and I saw you had these nice shorts with a giant like South African flag on it. Do you remember? And then you came into my office I have the Camino Travel Center then in Rua
Yes,
San Pedro.
that's right.
And you came in, and I said, "Hey, I love your shorts."
Where are they? You couldn't see the shorts.
Because you had long pants on.
It had been drizzling, and I put my rain pants on. I remember that. There was a guy in your office. You had someone working for you.
Yes.
I can't remember his name.
No.
But you said to me, "What happened to your lovely South Africa flag shorts?" And I said, "Oh, no, I've got them on." And without thinking, I bent down and pulled my black trousers down to my ankles, and that fellow in your office.
Yes, Frank was just, what? That was fun.
And just after that, Sue Kenny walked into the office. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
That was... I'm not sure when that was. I don't think it was 2013. I'm trying to think. Was 2013?
No, it must have been 2011, I think. Could that be right?
It was 2009. It was 2009 because I remember I came in with my friend Marion, And she walked with me in 2009, and Sue Kelly walked in, and I didn't know her. I'd seen pictures of her, and we had connected on the forum and by email. But as soon as she walked in, I recognized her. So it was a very happy day that day to meet Sue. Yeah.
So I'm sure also I think you've been active also in South Africa in the various associations there, or in the meetings. You have meetups. What are some of the questions that people from South Africa, because there's a big Camino in South Africa, there's something special that I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of South Africans walking. What are the typical questions that you have, or difficulties that you have coming from South Africa? I know one of the things that the visa situation, the visa thing.
Yes. We run workshops in Durban. Well, we have. We haven't done one for this year or last year. But my colleague Junie and I usually run what we call a practical workshop. So we have different people talking about which route to choose, when to go, how to get there, what you need in the way of visas, or and you don't need any sort of vaccinations or anything for Spain. But we make it practical things. How much money will you need? We have a male and a female unpacking their backpacks and showing them what goes into a backpack. And then one of our ladies does a medical thing on what to put in your first aid box and how to treat minor things like blisters and that. But yes, the questions are very similar to what's on your forum. When is the best time to go? How do I get to Saint Jean, or how do I get to Saria? How much money will I need? What if I'm a vegetarian, or I have celiacs, or I need to have a cap machine? Similar questions. Yeah. But we know which questions they're going to be, so we don't answer everything in our workshops. We let them ask questions. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any questions to ask.
Right. Now, how is it travel-wise from South Africa? Is there like one? Because I know Iberia had a route to South Africa, direct flight, a while back.
Iberia stopped. Their last flight was on the 1st of September, and my husband, my brother and his wife and I went last year to Saria, and we had planned to book on Iberia, but we were leaving on the 10th of September. So we had to go on one of the Eastern airlines, and we went on Emirates. It's a lovely airline, but it's very tiring from South Africa. If you can picture the world map, you start off in Cape Town or Durban, and you fly direct to Dubai. So you have 7 hours to the east, and then you have 7 hours back to the west.
Because I didn't realize, when we scheduled this call, South Africa and Spain, mainland Spain, is on the same time zone.
Yes, we are. We're on the same time. But we found we fly into Madrid. If you're going to do the Camino Francais or one of the others, you have to get there to your start by train or by bus or another flight. So for our family walk last year, that was a lovely walk. We flew to Santiago. So Iberia booked us, Emirates booked us, and we then flew to Santiago, and we flew back to Barcelona and home to Dubai and Durban again. But it's a long trip. The first one in 2002, we flew on, I think it was Greek Athens Airlines, I think it was called. We flew from Durban to Joburg, which is a 1-hour flight. We had a 4-hour wait over in Johannesburg. Then we flew to Athens, which is 9 hours to the east. We had almost an overnight in Athens. They couldn't get us on an earlier flight back to Spain, to Madrid, so we left like 9 hours later to get to Madrid. And there we got a train to Pamplona, and then we got the 7 o'clock bus to Roncesvalles, and we were zonked, absolutely zonked.
Wow.
But Eva, when I think of that first walk in 2002, we thought of ourselves as athletes, the three of us that did it. We'd done the London Marathon the year before. We thought we were really strong, good runners. And we totally found it a slog, because we had planned to walk 27 days from Roncesvalles to Santiago, which meant we had to do at least 28 kilometers every day. Yeah. And of course, in 2002, I think there were 165 albergues. So some were 40 kilometers apart, some were 30 kilometers apart. Some days we would walk 20 Ks and realize we weren't going to make it to the next albergue, and other days we had to walk 40. So I thought, people talk about this Caminos, that's the most wonderful thing. This is a hard slog.
Yeah. So you weren't that, you didn't like it as much the first time, is that what you're saying? Or
Well, it was more a physical challenge, really, for us. We went to do a physical thing. It wasn't a deeply religious. We had a Catholic girl with us who was quite religious, but for us it was more the challenge of walking 800 kilometers or 760 from Roncesvalles. But it brought us down a peg or two, because we really thought this is so easy. We had done 80-kilometer runs. We had done the Comrades Marathon. We'd done all those sort of things. And, I think people often wish they'd walked the Camino 20 years ago, before the crowds and all the technology. I see people make those comments, but Eva, it wasn't really romantic, or not for us. Yeah. I think many people imagine what is a 2020 Camino with all the knowledge that they have. With a Brearley guide and all the paths well established and all the resources, but no crowds. It wasn't like that. No. When you think about then, as we said, Google didn't become a worldwide phenomenon until about 2003. And I can remember going onto a search website that said, Ask Jeeves. Do you remember Ask Jeeves? Yes. A butler, and you could ask Jeeves. Yes. But there still wasn't that much information about. And as I said, the albergues were few and far between. And communicating home was a nightmare, because Finn wanted me to let him know at least every second day, either phone or try and email him to let him know that we were okay. Yeah. And I had a thing called a world call card that I bought in South Africa to use in Spain. It had a scratch bit at the bottom that you scratched, and it had like 16-digit code on it. So after walking 40 kilometers trying to find an albergue, you'd have a shower, quickly wash your clothes. This is now 5 o'clock at night. You go out to try and find that blue Telefonica box that you passed.
Phone booth 2 kilometers back.
Yeah. And sometimes you'd get there and it had been vandalized and you couldn't use it anyway. If you had to put the card in and click on all those numbers, and God help you if you made a mistake, because then you had to put the phone down and start all over again.
Yes. Oh, wow.
And even the internet cafes were not that plentiful, and somehow they all seemed to be run by foreign people, not Spanish people. And you would get there and it would be Spanish, maybe Chinese guys who own the internet cafe. And the keyboard is not a QWERTY keyboard. You could never find the @ key. And if you try to type in...
I remember questions and comments on the forum in the beginning. But, what is the best calling card? All of that.
Yeah. Yes. Those were the problems then. But if you, and there were always queues behind you, so you had €2 for 20 minutes. And the internet machines in the albergues were the same, long queues of pilgrims waiting to send a message home. And if it was a small village with electricity not so great, sometimes you'd type a long message in your account, not Gmail, there was no Gmail then, and the light would go flick and your whole message would disappear and just start all over again.
Oh, no. Now, equipment-wise, on the first time you walked it, did you make any mistakes with the things you brought or things you didn't bring?
Absolutely. Far too much stuff. Yeah. When I think about it, there were no luggage transfer facilities then either. We probably had between 8 to 9 kilos on our back, and it wasn't until... Oh, no, it's terrible. When you're 5'2" and you weighed 160 pounds, or no, what would the pounds be? I can't remember. 52... I'm not sure, but you know, if 8 or 9 kilos was far too much. I felt like my feet were going to sink into the ground some days. But we did send stuff to the post office in Santiago, so we reduced it. No, we all make mistakes. You listen to everybody. You nod your head when they say, take one, wash one, have one spare, don't take too much stuff. You say, oh, good advice, and then you start packing more stuff in.
Now, the first Camino you did you meet a lot of other pilgrims? Was there like a community walking, as many people find now that they find the Camino family and all that?
There were far less people. I had a look at 2002, but they didn't keep records that year for some reason, or the Pilgrim Office lost the statistics. But there are a few German websites and others that said there were about 22,000 people got the Compostela. So that's how few pilgrims there were. But that didn't mean that we always got a bed, Eva. I think because there were so few albergues and we were doing such long distance, if the albergue was 18 kilometers away, we'd do another 20 and go to the next one. So when we arrived at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they often had a completo sign up. But we slept on the floor in a kitchen, and it sounds romantic, it's not. We slept on many floors with no mattresses. You know, we were not that young. Even 20 years ago, I'm 73 now, so I was 53 or 54. I wasn't used to this. I wasn't a hiker. So for me, it was good. I felt an enormous sense of achievement when I got home, but I crossed it off my bucket list and said, never again. I'm not doing that.
I hear many people say that when I talk to them in Santiago, when they arrive and they're very tired and they're just emotionally drained and physically drained, and they said, well, that's it. I'm not coming back. And then the next year I see them again. So what happened with you? What happened?
Well, number 13 was supposed to be this year.
Yes. Now, why did you came back for a second one if you had...
Well, I'll tell you what happened. When I got home from the Camino, about 6 months later, I got a phone call one evening from a lady in Cape Town and said, we've started the Confraternity of St. James in Cape Town. And we believe you've done the Camino. You're the only one we can find in Durban. Now, Durban and Cape Town are 1,800 kilometers apart. So for people to get help or to meet somebody who's done it, you had to have regional reps or chapters or whatever. So they asked me if I would be the Confraternity lady for my district. So I said, well, yeah, okay, but you know, I did it so quickly. And she said, that's fine. You've got the visa, you've flown over, you know what the albergues look like. You can at least help people. So they started, and the following year, I had a get-together at our house, because she contacted me and said, you haven't had any workshops or anything. So I said, was I supposed to? And she said, well, try and have one on the Feast of St. James. So I said, when is that? So she said, it's in July. So in July, I put a little notice in all our community newspapers, and our daily newspaper put something in that there was going to be a Camino workshop. Well, I didn't think anybody would come because everybody I'd spoken to never heard of this pilgrimage. So 12 people came, Eva. That was fantastic. I couldn't believe it. 4 were going to do the Camino. 4 had done the Camino. 5 were going to do the Camino. And then there was us 3 as well. So I decided, let them ask the ones who wanted to do the Camino, that we would be like a little panel, the ones who had done it, and they could ask us questions. And then one would say, what about supper? They'd ask one of the other ladies, and she'd say, oh, it's wonderful. If you stay in these little albergues, the hospitaleros cook for you, and you all have a meal around the table. I thought, I didn't have that. And then she said, and you have a special oraciones, like the blessings, and they have candlelight. And I thought, what Camino did I do? I didn't have that. And then someone else said, oh, it's fantastic because if you want a meal, you know, you can go out with other pilgrims and buy stuff at the supermercado and come back and have a cook-up. You all share and you sing songs. And I thought, Well, they did a completely different Camino to me. And the more I met people who had done it that way, I thought, I've missed out big time. Do you know, when you get in late to a town or a village, and the only guidebook we had was the Confraternity of St. James's little guidebook. I've got every one since 2002. And in the guidebook it would say, basic alberga, no electricity, no beds, no hot water, and we'd say, pass,
Yes.
sorry, we need a hot shower, we need a comfortable bed, we've got 40 Ks to do tomorrow, we want to have a proper meal, and we would go and look for somewhere else to stay. You know, there weren't that many options, but we would rather go somewhere else, so we never stayed in those kinds of albergas. We never had communal meals. So in 2004, a friend and I decided we would go and do the Camino, but for some reason she wanted to walk in France. So we walked from Paris to Roncesvalles. There was not one alberga, no pilgrims at all.
Yes.
So we hired a car in Pamplona, we drove to Sarria, and then we walked to Santiago and stayed in a few albergas. But, you know, I must be honest, on the Sarria to Santiago section at that time, there were no special little albergas that would give you a meal. Now they're wonderful little private albergas, and they cook meals and you can have meals in there. But at the time there were those white buildings that were the municipal albergas with a telefonica outside. I don't know if you recognize those, but I think for the 1993 Holy Year, Galicia had built like 18 of these one up, one down little albergas. And most of them were in the most inaccessible places. Barbadillo, nothing there. Near Casanova, nowhere to buy food. So if you didn't have a bit of pan and queso in your backpack, you had no supper anyway. So, yeah, and that was 2004. Anyway, things improved.
Things have changed a lot, you know, that is true. Now you have done, you said 13 walks? 13
I've
Caminos?
walked to Santiago 12 times, and this year would have been 13th time.
So,
But some of the years I doubled up. What happened was in 2013, when I was taking the first little Caracoles group, you know, the slow snails Camino, the 17 days, I flew to Sarria, and I walked it myself first in 5 days. I had done it like 6 times, Eva, but I couldn't remember where the places were where someone with 2 crutches couldn't get over a river, or perhaps really difficult areas. And we had that lady with a walking frame as well from Ireland who came to join us. And Renette, who had had the stroke, she was wobbly. She had 2 sticks, and we'd watch her, and she'd start going from side to side, and I'd say, Renette, are you dancing or are you wobbling? And she'd say, I'm dancing. You know? Or she'd say, I'm just going to stop because I'm, you know, she would get the wobbles. But I walked that route myself first, so I count that a walk into Santiago. And then I met Uncle Bob, I called him Bob Spenger, from your forum. Robert loved your forum. He would never go on Facebook. He said, I don't need to. I get all the information I need from the forum.
And he came into my office, I remember that travel agency that I had, and he came in several times. And it's amazing. He was an amazing person.
He was. The reason why he joined that year was, and he did it again the following year on the Camino English, when you were supposed to join us, remember?
Yes, I remember something about that, yes.
You said, don't tell anybody, but I'm going to walk a few days with you on the Camino. And you were going to room with Robert Spenger. And then you couldn't find anybody to take over your luggage thing. You said, so if I'm not there, I'm not going to have anybody to collect the luggage or open for the luggage. And you said only if I could get someone to do that. But you were this close, Eva, to doing a Camino.
That's true. I remember now, because that's the thing with my luggage service, is that if I don't have anyone there, it's difficult to get away. So, and actually, after this whole virus situation, now I'm actually thinking about maybe stopping the whole service. But
oh, really?
yeah, because it's
more people are sending now than ever before, aren't they?
well, and there's a lot of other things, places you could send to too. You could send to the post office. They've been very good service, and they store things as well. So it takes a lot of my time, and there are other places you could send to. So I haven't decided yet, but maybe. But I was going to ask you, with so many Caminos, has there any special moments, any special people you've met, any stories?
I'm still friends with people on the Camino, Eva. You know, when I was going to meet a group in El Ferro in 2014 to do the slow Camino English, I flew to Spain first, and I went to visit a family in Zubiri, because we have spent every Camino we've had. You know, in 2010 I started Ama Walkers Camino to take people on the trail, and every group has stayed at their pension. It used to be their home, and he was retrenched, and they didn't know where he could find a job, not around there anyway. So his in-laws said, why don't you come and stay with us? They had 2 little girls, but they had a double-story house. Why don't you stay with us and turn your home into a pension? And we were the first people to stay in his home. So they came and cooked for us, you know, so I've become very friendly with them. And Maria Mediavo, Felisa's mother, remember Felisa from Logroño, the Hijos Aqua e Amor Sello, outside Logroño. Felisa was a character on the Camino. Everybody knew Felisa. She actually died later in 2002. She was 91. She was blind, very poor, illiterate. She would sit at this table, which was actually 2 oil drums with a door on it. That was her table. And she had this stamp made. Somebody made the stamp for her, and she sat under a fig tree. So it was Hijos Aqua e Amor. And everybody wanted a Felisa stamp. Well, when she died, her daughter, who was 60, said, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. And her daughter, who's also Felisa, said, Mom, what are you going to do now that you haven't got your mother to look after? So Maria, for a few months, there was nobody at that table. And then she decided she might as well sit there. Now, I visit Maria. I've got there, I phoned them. And no matter where I'm going to start in Spain, I always make sure I go to Logroño and I walk up to go and visit Maria. She's 88 now, and I don't know how much longer she'll be able to do this. And I don't think her daughter will do it as well. So that's another person we meet regularly.
Where is this on the Camino exactly?
It's on the way into Logroño. On the way in, it's on a dusty little road. And she sits under the fig tree. She's got a little ramshackle house. She's a lovely, lovely person. The last time I saw her was 2 years ago. Gail and I, my sister-in-law, and I went to visit her. And we met Ocasio there. You know, Ocasio de Paz, who runs he looks after her a little bit. So if I can't get hold of Philly, her daughter, I just send a message to Ocasio and say, how's Maria doing? Is she okay? Another family I always visit in Porto Marin is the family who run the Ultraia Albergue. They're fabulous. When we first stayed there, their daughters were 12 and 13. Now they're grown up, the one's married. You know, it's just lovely to meet people along the way. It's really great.
That's great. I think we could talk for hours because you have so many stories, and you keep, like you said, you hold all the Confraternity guides since 2002, and you have clippings, and there's so many things.
And a whole bookcases of books and DVDs and everything. But you know, it was Piers Nicholson's forum and your forum. When I joined your forum, I started saving questions that were not on my 62 pages from Piers Forum. How can we get married in the cathedral? Can we do the Camino with the horse and carriage? You know, strange sort of new questions. And then people started doing the Camino with their dogs. And then some wanted to do it with a donkey. And then other people wanted to take their kids. And so it was all of your questions from your forum and his forum that went into me making a book. Because by the time 2010 came, I had another 400 pages of questions and answers. Wow. And someone said, so why didn't you turn it into a book? So that's when I published the first book called Your Camino.
Where can people, do you have a blog still? I remember you had a lot of blogs. Do you have one blog for each Camino you walked? Or?
I've got a blog. I don't post on it very often anymore. The I'm a Walker's blog was almost like cutting my teeth on the Camino. Yep. You know, I wrote about backpacks, ultralight backpacks, how to go, what to do, but now the forums have taken over that.
That's true.
And also, you'll know, Eva, that the St. James at Yahoo is gone. All the Yahoo forums have closed. You know, Yahoo closed all of those. Yep. Santiago was closed. Facebook kind of replaced all of those. So even my blog, although I keep it up to date, I have a memorial page that I always keep up to date. I've been doing it for a long time of people who die on the Camino. And I ask pilgrims to send me pictures of memorials or crosses or that. So I try to keep it as accurate as possible. And that I still keep up to date.
Now, it would be great if you could, afterwards when we finish, send me an email with the links to all these various, for example, where they can buy your book. Do you still sell your book?
Amazon's got it.
Can you? I will put the links in the description underneath the video. If you can send me the links afterwards, and so people, if they're interested, they can go there and have a look.
But they must just wait, because during this lockdown, that's what I've done. It hasn't been updated since 2015, and the publisher who were based in France said, please, you need to edit and update the book. And so they also want me to put a chapter in the back, which I'm doing now, on the Via Francigena, because I walked that in 2006 from Switzerland. And then again in 2016, I took groups, 4 of them, to Rome. So he wants a chapter on that. But this Your Camino book, so much was out of date. As you said, call cards. Where do you find call cards? Where do you find Wi-Fi hotspots? You know, in the old days, there were websites that told you where the hotspots, this hotel or that library or what have you. I had to take all of that out. I think there were 2,500 website links in that book that I've had to check every single one. And just leave out those that don't work anymore and try and find new ones. Yeah.
But I think people still find interesting to see because did you write like your travel? Was it a diary kind of? No.
It's just a question. It's got chapters on when to go, what the weather will be like, what to wear, what all the routes are there. There are 35 routes on Camino routes through. Well, it was originally just France and Spain. Now, of course, Portugal is huge. And so there were lots of routes. So I've put all the links to all the different routes, and most of them, how to get there. Yeah. You know, how to get to your start. And then the same year, I published a little book called Camino Lingo, which is a sort of dictionary and phrases booklet just for the Camino. I think Spaniards would laugh at it because it hasn't got any verb conjugations or anything like that. Renette helped me with it. She was my Spanish teacher. It's the English word, the Spanish word, and how to pronounce it. And it's only related to the Camino. It hasn't got where can I service my car or where can I buy tickets for the theatre. You know, it hasn't got any.
No, that's nice. Send me. I will put the links afterwards in the description underneath the video. Well, great. Thank you so much, Sylvia, for talking to me today.
I was hoping to see you in June, you know, but
well,
we won't see you in June.
I'll be here. If you come, I'll be here, but I understand if you can't make it. Okay, thank you, Sylvia.
I do send luggage ahead, usually, because, because I did 4 Caminos and 2 walks to Rome, carrying a backpack, staying in albergues, and I don't do that anymore. I like to tell pilgrims who look at me sideways when they see my bag going out the door that one day I was walking near Clavijo. I've been to Clavijo many times. And Santiago came down from the sky on his big white horse, Eva, and he said to me, Sylvia, my daughter, why have you been carrying that ridiculous rucksack on your back for so many years? You're not young anymore. And have you ever seen pictures of the master or us apostles, something like that, burdened by this heavy load? And don't you think after all this time of taking up beds in the dormitories, it's time to let other people have a turn? So let the new pilgrims do that. You go and stay with a little hostel or a pension and support the other people on the Camino. So that's what I like to tell them. So I listen to Santiago, you see, and I don't carry my rucksack anymore, and I don't stay in the albergues anymore.
No, I understand. Very good. Okay, thank you, Sylvia.